We are now ready for Theresa to take it away and spend 15 minutes inspiring us about human resources and HR and AI.
Thank you so much, Gerald. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to be, as I share my screen, just share my excitement for being one of the presenters at this event today. And most importantly, the opportunity to actually, be one of the first female presenters today, or the only female presenter, I think. And I really want to give a shout out to all the women that are here that are supporting artificial intelligence, leaning in and learning themselves. And so I'm just so thrilled to be here. So I run a business called People Power AI. Not your typical technology focused person. I spent 25 years leading and supporting human resources, organizational development, learning and development, and building cultures within organizations, from global media organizations all the way to small family-owned operations. And the one thing that really streams through all of that is the interest and desire for support and for people to come together in a way that's meaningful within their business. And in November of 2022, last year, I found a tool that I think is going to revolutionize the way that we find that connection within the way we work. And so that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. But the first thing I want to do is ask a little bit about what comes to mind. What are the words that come to mind when you think about AI? So I'd love if you just chat bomb the chat, share your ideas and share your thoughts. I'd love to see the things that you think about. I know for me and the clients that I work with, the core challenge that some of the people I talk with that comes about has to do with fear, anxiety, and particularly, I speak to those people leaders in the world who are struggling to really balance some dueling priorities. Those priorities I have started to call the legal ego battle, where on the legal side, there's a lot of our roles in HR have been so closely aligned for so long with the legal side of things, and that matters. It's important, and there are good reasons for that. But what I've found in talking with some of the employment lawyers that I know and the HR leaders that I am friends with and work with is that there's a hesitancy to lean into learning AI. Sure, it's okay to kind of dabble, but when it comes to really integrating it, there's hesitation, and there's good need for that. It's important to be thoughtful and considerate in the way we bring AI into our world. The other side of that kind of challenge that we work against is the battle of ego. And that is the questions that come up in our mind, the imposter syndrome, the feeling of not being the quote unquote right person to do the leading of integration. And I hope today you walk away with a feeling of challenging that belief and recognizing the power that we have, that our role that people leaders have within their organizations to create structure and strategy, which I'll talk to you about in a few minutes as I continue the conversation. The one thing I do want to say is this is my first time using PechaKucha as a style, and I'm going to really work to keep within this 15-minute time frame. So let's keep going. I wanted to share a little bit of just background, since kind of level setting the stage on definitions and what some of these terms that you may have heard or may have seen in the world, what they mean and how they impact you. So generally speaking, without reading everything that you can read, I'm just going to kind of touch on the idea that, artificial intelligence is this idea that machines can operate as humans, and that can be scary. And we've seen these examples of artificial intelligence throughout our lives over the past many years in unique and different ways that we may not have even really considered artificial intelligence. Take tools like Amazon, Netflix, and even more kind of using in our day-to-day, Grammarly. I've used Grammarly for a long time and never really thought of it as a artificial intelligence agent working within my business. But it is, and it worked to create more efficient and effective ways for me to work and operate. Generative AI has kind of 25 million X that over the past 10 months by really bringing active participation with AI into the scope of influence for all of us. And so it's been a real journey, and my journey began 10 months ago. That's not that long ago. It's fascinating to think about how much has happened. And so my focus is really on bringing education and that integration of tools into the worlds where we work. And so I want to talk a little bit about what some of those tools are. So I'm sure some of these you're familiar with. I would love to know in the chat, are you familiar with all 5 of these? Are you familiar with 4, 3, 2, ChatGPT? Where do you guys rank in terms of how familiar you are with using these different tools? My first entree was ChatGPT. My first thing I ever did in ChatGPT was ask it to write a haiku about organizational culture. And it was really entertaining and sort of mind-boggling how these ideas that I put in to chat were able to result in something really usable and interesting for my social media account. And so that was sort of my foray. And then we have other tools like Bing, which you may have heard of, Bard, which is just, I think, announced today or yesterday that they're now allowing integrations with it's kind of similar to ChatGPT with their plugins. They're allowing some integrations, which is some really exciting news. It feels like this journey of artificial intelligence tools is really in a battle for who's going to come out on top. And ideally, there's not just one. There's a division of insights across different tools. Cloud, which has become personally one of my favorite tools to use for a few different reasons. What I perceive as the amped up security and heightened focus on humanizing, reduction of bias in the way that they built their model is something that's really amazing. And I love the fact that with Claude, you can integrate PDFs and you can have them review those PDFs in a very simple way. You can certainly do it with other tools, but I found Claude to be the fastest and the easiest one to work with. And there's Perplexity, and there's Poe, and there are all these other ChatGPT tools. So from my perspective, while I do prefer Claude for some things, I prefer ChatGPT for others. I find the native conversation that comes out of ChatGPT a little bit more relatable, sounds a little bit more like me. And that could be due to the customization elements that exist within my profile, because I do pay for the professional version. But all of these tools are great to explore. Dip your foot in, go in, ask some questions, do some prompting. And I think from an expansive perspective on how fast things have been growing, it's interesting to take a look. This report was just announced from Sequoia. They compared where they thought generative AI would be 10 months ago and then where it is today. And just the number, I'm not going to go through all these, obviously, but the number of tools and the expansion that's happening is mind-blowing. I want to talk a little bit about prompt engineering, making things easier and getting the outcomes that you want with your experience in generative AI a little bit quicker and a little bit faster. And that equates to prompt engineering. In its simplest terms, I always like to say that everybody's a prompt engineer. And I'm sure if you're actually a software engineer, you might balk at that. But from my perspective, as generative AI becomes a mainstay in our day-to-day, we all get to put that moniker on our headlines in LinkedIn that we are prompt engineers, because all that really means is asking really great questions. There are a lot of different ways to do it, very direct ways. The way that I have found to be the most powerful is to use a 6-point structure for your prompts. There's a lot of studies that show that the way that we communicate has a greater impact on ourselves than it does on others. So I use this 6-point method, which includes a welcome, role assignments, a request, the tone, the confirmation, and the appreciation step. And so all of these different pieces come in to formulate this type of communication that's very collegial, very connected. And that's not necessarily or at all to the benefit of the computer or the generative AI tool, but it's to benefit us in the way that we explore and review what that experience is going to be like, the way we internalize the information we get back, the way we explore the validity of the information that comes through that generative AI response. And using this system allows for some interaction that you may not be familiar with. For those that aren't as schooled or as engaged with using generative AI daily, there are a lot of things that you can do through your prompting that you may not be aware of, such as asking it to ask you questions. So that's been one of the most insightful tools that I use as a prompt engineer to ensure that I've really thought through everything that needs to be thought through. An example, because I thought it would be helpful to share this. So this is me in the old days. On the left-hand side, this is me going into my Google and asking for ideas to create options for increasing employee attendance or employee engagement at events. That's a very simple example of what we would do in our role to build organizational connection, but it's a valid example. And what I would have to do from there is scroll through the 20 different options or 200 different options that came up out of Google. Now I can use this 6-point approach: welcoming, showing appreciation, setting the tone, identifying the insights that I want to have shared, ensuring that I'm validating what I'm asking and giving enough information by challenging my generative AI to ask me questions back, and then showing a little bit of appreciation. It is a very streamlined and simple approach that I go into a lot more in depth when I'm doing sessions longer than 15 minutes. So I'm going to keep rolling on. From this prompt, I get a list of 10. Now you only see 7 here, and that's because there were 3 options that either I'd already done or just weren't valid for my company. But think about that. How long would it have taken me to go through and come up with the prompts that were most valuable for this particular event or ideas for this particular opportunity within my company if it hadn't been for ChatGPT or for Claude? I would have sat there going through paper after paper after PDF to find out some really cool solutions that after 25 years of leading HR, I had never done before. So let's talk about how you can lead your journey, your team's journey through AI. Some case studies for those folks that are in HR. There are a lot of different ways that you can utilize artificial intelligence and generative AI to create moments that matter for your organization. And those moments that matter come from efficiency of time as well as efficiency of tool. And so using those tools that I already shared, Bard, Bing, Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Poe, those are great tools to get those initial lists. But what I'm really excited about are the companies that are SaaS organizations coming up with platforms that are actually going to allow us to use that extra time in really cool and unique ways. And I wanted to highlight and feature a few of those today. So the first one is called Fundmentum. Fundmentum is creating new ways for organizations to do brainstorming faster and easier and with the addition of artificial intelligence. It's fun, it's interactive, and it saves a lot of time with leaders having to come up with the ideas themselves. And sometimes crazy ideas from artificial intelligence create the best brainstorming. Second is Zortify. Hiring, I saw a question in the chat about recruitment and hiring. Zortify is a tool that takes evaluative behavior and personality tool assessments that are used in the pre-hiring process, and it utilizes the ability of natural language modeling to actually assess editorial content. So what we've had in the past is assessment of quantitative elements. Now you can use qualitative elements. Zortify is doing some really amazing things. Pinnacle, management training is one of the key needs of organizations. With Pinnacle, they actually insert moments of training that matter using artificial intelligence. And then we have Inca and Water Cooler. Both of these tools, Inca in particular, is taking assessments and evaluations and doing similar work as Zortify in doing analytics on the actual language used and breaking it down so that we can make informed decisions about how our organizations are operating. And Water Cooler is going to blow your mind. Water Cooler is actually synced in using API to some of the programs that we use, and without having to ask surveys, without having to dig deep and ask your employees to fill out information, it layers on top of some of your software and actually pulls insights from the communications that's already happening through Slack, through Teams, through other tools. So some amazing things. I talk a lot about more of these in my sessions that I run with organizations and in my upcoming clinics that I'm going to be talking about in a second. We know that innovation is a little bit of a slow bleed for HR leaders typically. What I hope to do is ramp that up intentionally with providing HR leaders with the insight, the confidence to speak about artificial intelligence within their organizations. I do that through a three-point method approach, I should say. The first one is to assess readiness. The second one is to build a pilot program. And the third one is to create a communication strategy so that people feel engaged and empowered to be a part of it. The key thing I feel is so important with artificial intelligence is to be cautiously optimistic and incredibly curious. It's my number one value is curiosity. We need to know that the information is based on limited and biased information. That's a fact. We are humans. We are biased. And so that's why I got to give a shout out to all my women of AI out there. Get involved. I love seeing all these amazing women join today. By getting more females, more Black individuals, more people minorities involved in the development and the utilization of AI, we create a more reflective artificial intelligence tools going forward. It's so important for women to be involved. If you're a woman in AI, give a shout out in the chat. I want to see you. It can produce hallucinations. There's some old and outdated data. These are all things that will be fixed over time, but they do need to be fixed. And so some best practices, I'm going to move forward. You're going to be able to see all that information in my chat. I know I'm hitting time. Two things. Join the free peoplepower.ai LinkedIn group. You can type in People Power AI. It'll take you right there. Second, launching today, I'm going to be starting monthly free AI clinics to help support leaders, people leaders in all departments, learn more about AI with practical tools, guest speakers that are innovators, and resources that will make this journey easier for you. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to getting to know so many of you.
Thank you, Theresa. That was an outstanding amount of time that you spent in an efficient way. You shared a lot of tips and techniques and strategies, and I really like the free clinic that you're offering every week to people. So I encourage all of you to connect up with Theresa and see how you can bring some people power to the AI world.